learning of the Torah, the hearing of the Torah, has strengthened us, and we have walked away from this Chumash much stronger in our souls, in our neshamot, and much better Jews. So this is Shabbat Chazak. These two parashot have in them a lot of fascinating, a lot of information, a lot of details. Our Parsha, and this is what we're going to focus on in a few moments, okay, starts by discussing, vows and oaths that a person might take. We'll get to that in a moment. Okay, then it goes on to discuss the war against Midian. Okay, God commands Moshe to wage a war against Midian for what they did in the last two parashot, when Balak and Bilam tried to curse us, and then the women were sent, and so on. Okay, Bilam is killed as well during that war. A census is taken. The Jewish people are counted. There's a whole story about Gad and Reuven, how they had a lot of cattle, and they asked permission for Moshe to stay on the eastern side of the Jordan, in the state of Jordan today. We discussed that last year. Okay, there's moving on to the following portion, Masei, meaning journeys. Okay, the travels of the Jewish people. So the Torah describes the 42 journeys that the Jewish people took from the exodus of Egypt till they reached the borders of Israel. Okay, the Parsha continues to discuss the borders of Israel, and I just want to show you here, okay, in the Chumash of Rav Steinsaltz, he has a little diagram here about what the borders of Israel were as given to the Jewish people when they entered Israel. It's just good to know. You guys see the dotted line? Goes all the way up, far up into Syria. Okay, you guys see that? There's the Dead Sea, the Kinneret, the Golan. It goes all the way up into Syria. And down south, it does not include a lot. Okay, the border goes here. It goes eastwards into Jordan, basically. Does not include a lot. Okay, so these borders are also discussed. In Parashat Matot-Masei. There's a whole story, the whole description about the daughters of Tzlofchad, two women that asked for a special permission to get an inheritance in the land of Israel, and they did. They did eventually. And that's basically it. Of course, in a brief nutshell. Okay, I just wanted to focus with you guys on the first two psukim, which again is the beginning of the parsha, which discusses nedarim and shvuot, meaning vows. You can see it's translated here, into vows, a vow or an oath, called a neder or a shvuah. The main difference, guys, between a neder and a shvuah, a vow and an oath, just so we're on the same page. A neder, a vow, is when someone does one of two things. They take a vow to bring a korban, a certain offering, an animal, to the Mishkan, the tabernacle, or obviously eventually in the Beit HaMikdash, or it's a vow that a person puts on a certain object. Meaning a person can say, I'm taking a vow to never ever use this table or to ever use this toilet paper brand. Again, it's either a vow to bring a korban, an offering, to the temple, to the Beit HaMikdash, or it's a vow in which you prohibit upon yourself a certain object. The object is the emphasis. Whether it's a food or it's an inanimate object, whatever it is. On the other hand, a shvuah, an oath, is something which I prohibit on myself. Meaning I make a prohibition, let's say, that I am never going to eat vegetables. I am the focus in that case. I am never going to eat vegetables, or I am never going to enjoy song. I'm never going to listen to music, God forbid. I'm never going to listen to music. the focus is me, as opposed to a vow where the focus is the object or the animal, the offering. Okay? So that's what we're focusing on. I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page. It's important to understand what a neder, what a vow, and what an oath is, a shvuah. Okay, till today, these words are used in common modern Hebrew. People use these, and we'll get to that in just a moment. So,
I don't understand something. If I make a vow to prohibit using something, what's the difference between that and a shvuah on myself with using that? Like you said, I won't I won't listen to music. So is the vow, it could be a vow on the music that I'm gonna prohibit myself from listening to that music. I'm just not getting the difference.
Right. So the difference is it's kind of semantics, not exactly, but it's kind of semantics that I can say I am taking a vow, okay, not to drink this cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then the focus, the emphasis is on this. And therefore it's, so to speak, a little less strict or severe than a shvuah, an oath, which is much more strict, because in a shvuah, okay, I say I am prohibiting myself from ever drinking coffee.
It's like open-ended.
It's like more open-ended, and I am the focus. It's on me, and not on a specific. With a neder, with an oath, I would make this specific brand of coffee. With an oath, it could be much more general. Or when you make an oath, when you make a neder, excuse me, as far as I know, I hope I'm not mistaken, but as far as I know, when you make a neder, a vow, the object has to be defined, and preferably, I think, in front of you, okay, or near you when you make a vow. This thing, you like point, you say, I make a vow to bring this sheep as an offering, or I make a vow to only use this cup when I have coffee. An oath is a more general, like, lifestyle that you take upon yourself.
Thank you.
Of to do or not to do. Okay, so let's see. So the Parsha starts like this. Hashem speaks to the heads of the tribes. Mateh, a tribe in Hebrew can either be called a mateh, or in plural, as in our case, matot, or a tribe could be called a shevet. Okay, that's another word. Shin, bet, tet. Two different names for tribes. So Moshe speaks to the heads of the tribes, who were the heads of the tribes of the Jewish people, the children of Israel, saying to them, the following is what Hashem commanded. Okay? A person who makes a vow to God, or takes an oath, swears, okay, makes an oath to prohibit upon themselves certain things, they cannot change their word. They cannot violate their word. Whatever came out of their mouth, they have to do. This is the opening for discussing the laws of vows and oaths. That generally speaking, if you said you're going to do something or not do something, you got to do it. It's not kindergarten. Okay, you got to keep your word. Okay, you got to talk the talk and walk the walk. Okay. So, okay, and then again, I didn't bring all the verses, but the Torah continues to discuss the different situations and how can you annul, how can you change your mind, in what way, and how can a man do it, how can a woman do it, whether she's a married woman or she's single. There's different details, and you're more than welcome to look into it. I just want to focus on basically the first verse here, the first pasuk, okay? Because in the first pasuk, this is kind of rare in the Torah, that Moshe shares this halacha, this law, with the heads of the tribes, and then they are supposed to speak it to the rest of the Jewish people. Okay, Moshe speaks to the head of the tribes, lemor, telling them this is what Hashem commanded, and then they have to go and give it over to their tribe. what's going on here? This hardly, and perhaps not at all, I just want to be careful with what I'm saying, but this either is very rare or this might be the only example, I'm saying that carefully, in which Moshe doesn't give the instructions directly to the Jewish people. Of course, there are exceptions when the command, the mitzvah, is only for a specific person, like for his brother, Aaron. That's a different story. Or whether the mitzvah is only for a specific group of people. Fine, that makes sense. But here, these laws are applicable to all the Jewish people. So what's going on here that Moshe, he's not playing broken telephone, obviously. Why? So why is he choosing to have them deliver this information to their own tribe as opposed to the rest of the Torah when Moshe speaks to everybody? Okay, that's the first question. The second question we need to ask, guys, is on the second pasuk. Ish ki yidor neder la Hashem. If a man or a person, without getting into the details, if a person makes a vow to God, what are you talking about? When were we even given that option? How, like, what if or when a man makes a vow to Hashem? I have not been told until this very moment that that's even an option. It seems like Moshe is telling us, by the way, remember I told you about the option at Mount Sinai that a person can make a vow or an oath if they want to, and to prohibit something upon themselves. So when you do that, now I'm sharing the information. That did not happen. That was not given. Okay? Why would I even think that this is even an option? Until this moment, probably, I'll say that in parentheses, until this moment, I did not even know that it's an option as a Jewish person to take a vow and to prohibit something upon myself. So why is Moshe saying it as if I already know that? Oh yeah, when a man makes a, what are you talking about? You can make a vow? I never knew that. Okay? You guys get the two questions? Yeah? Very, very simple questions, and that's what I like to focus on, and hopefully we'll see some amazing, inspiring ideas about this. Okay, and we're going to see the first source we're going to see is the Rashbam. The Rashbam, which I was able to get into English as well, thank God. The Rashbam was one of the grandchildren of Rashi. Okay, Rashi had 3 daughters, and one of his daughters' son was the Rashbam. Okay, so he lived in France. We're talking the medieval period. He lived in France mostly. He was a big rabbi, a big tzaddik, and he has commentaries on the Chumash and other commentaries, other words of Torah. And he brings here this question, which I just posed, the second question at least. I'm sorry, the first question. Okay, he shares out the first question, and this is how he poses it. You can see it in English or on the sheet that you printed. Okay, he says the following: I was asked in the city called Yunyov, or in the English translation that I was finding called Anyan, but this is a place in France. I Googled it. I couldn't find what town or region, the Lacheroun region. This is somewhere in France. Okay, but of course the letters are probably not spelled correctly. Perhaps this was like 800 years ago, so the name might have changed. In any case, he was asked by his community or by Jews in this area, Lefi Pshat, based on the very simple, basic understanding of the Chumash, of the Torah, where in the world did we find a Parsha that begins like this? He adds a question. He's basically he's making the questions that I posed even more difficult. He's adding, or he's redefining, he's crystallizing the questions. Where in the world do we find a parsha that begins like this? It does not say before Vaydaber Hashem and Moshe lemor ish ki yidor. This verse that the Rashbam just wrote does not exist. Okay? Hashem does not tell Moshe, listen, if a person takes a vow, these are the following laws. That doesn't exist. Not in our parsha and not previously in the Chumash. So how can the Parsha start with Moshe speaking and he hasn't had any explicit instructions from Hashem, from the Mighty One? What is Moshe just like? Obviously not. But is he like pulling this out of his sleeve, out of his magician hat? God forbid, obviously not. But usually it says first, Hashem said to Moshe, this is what, like we have the Parsha with building the tabernacle, the Mishkan. Okay, it goes on and on, God telling Moshe what to do. And then there's a whole nother part, which Moshe instructing the Jewish people what to do. Hashem tells Moshe at the burning bush what's going to happen regarding the exodus from Egypt. And then we see it played out. In this case, it didn't happen. Why not? So this is what I answered. He says, Zet Shuvati, this is my answer, the Rashbam said. We read above, okay, meaning before, in the last Parsha, at the end of last Parsha, Parsha Pinchas, we read about the different korbanot, the different offerings that a person had to bring on the three festivals, on the Shlosha Regalim, on Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. And over there, the pasuk says, these are the offerings that you should bring to God on your festivals, including or besides the vow offerings and the contributions, okay, the voluntary offerings. That's what it says in one of the psukim, in one of the verses at the end of last Parsha, Parsha Pinchas, in which is described the different offerings, korbanot, that a person would have to bring to the temple on the three top festivals. So the pasuk there says that these are the offerings that you bring, as well as the offerings of your vows. Okay? Meaning, what does the Rashbam say? And the Gemara explains this, the Talmud explains this, that a person who took a vow to bring a korban, an offering to the Beit HaMikdash, okay, he had a time limit. They couldn't just bring it, 10 years later. They would have to bring it in one of the following three festivals, so as not to transgress the prohibition of Bal Te'acher. You should not be late. Okay? If you promise God you're going to bring a certain offering, a certain korban, you can't just bring it whenever you leave it for when you retire and you're 98 years old, God willing. There's a time limit. The time limit is one of the three festivals, one of the three consecutive festivals after you took that vow, that oath. The Gemara goes into explaining and arguing this. But in any case, therefore the Torah says, when you bring the offerings that you're supposed to bring on the three festivals, don't forget to also bring the offerings which you might have taken upon yourself in your voluntarily vow. Okay? As explained in the tractate Rosh Hashanah, in Gemara Rosh Hashanah. So that's what it said at the end of last Parsha, Pinchas. So now what happened? So the Rashbam says Moshe went and spoke to the heads of the tribes, who are also the judges, not to the head of the tribes and the judges, the head of the tribes, aka the judges, and he gave them the different instructions concerning the vows. And he said to them, by the way, God commanded to me that those vows, okay, and voluntary offerings, korbanot, should be brought on the festival so a person does not bring them late. Okay, great. So now the Rashbam explained why this portion does not begin with God's command, because God already mentioned it in the last portion when he mentioned the offerings of the festivals, and therefore now Moshe went on his own, in his own volition, voluntarily, he went and explained to the head of the tribes the different details of these laws. But guys, for our sake, the Rashbam just made it worse, so to speak. Okay, he makes the two questions I shared with you a few moments ago, more difficult. Why is this hinted to? What's with all the secrecy? It's like an undercover, deep in Syria, Mossad mission. Why isn't it all out in the open? Why all the hints and the details? Oh, last Parsha it was mentioned, and now Moshe is going to share it with the head of the judges. Why doesn't it say black and white? Okay, the laws of Nidarim and Shvuot, the laws of vows and oaths. Why all this secrecy? Why do I have to realize that it was mentioned in the fine print at the end of last Parsha which discusses Shabbat and the festival offerings, it mentions very briefly the vows, and then now Moshe all of a sudden shares this, but only with the judges. So the whole thing is like, is the Torah trying to hide it from us? Like, that's what it looks like. Is the Torah trying to hide this option of taking a vow? The details? Why isn't it mentioned black and white, A? And why is it given like in secret to the heads of the tribes? And they will share it with their tribe. Okay? Yes? Everyone's, yeah? Okay, great. So I want to see now 2 or 3 answers to this. Fascinating stuff. I'm going to start with the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, the Holy Or HaChaim, which I'm sorry I wasn't able to get in English. Okay, he asks a question. He asks one of the questions that I just posed. And I brought his answer here, or part of his answer, the main part of his answer. And he says the following. Achen hatamhu, the reason is for why the vows are given only to the heads of the tribes, and then they have to give it over to their own tribe. What is the reason? Ki lo ratza Hashem sheyeh katuv le'en kol adam. Hashem did not want this to be written and be exposed, revealed to the eye of every human being. It is exposed to us, okay? But at the time, at least, Hashem didn't want it revealed to everybody. And even now that it's written, and we can open the Chumash and see, we see that it's written, but it was supposed to be only given to the heads of the tribes. So there's still a certain degree of secrecy, even though I know the secret, okay? Why did Hashem want that? Why did Hashem not want it to be revealed to everybody? So the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, Reb Chaim ben Attar, okay, you remember Moroccan tzaddik who made Aliyah to Israel and lived in Jerusalem for 1 year before he passed away. So he says, Shehaneder v'ashvoah yeshna beheter. Shebezeh yezalzelu b'nedarim u'b'shvuot. Okay, the Or HaChaim HaKadosh says there's a danger that a neder, a vow, taking a vow, or taking an oath can become a very permissible option, which can lead people to lizarzel, to take lightly this whole possibility, this whole option of vows and oaths. If it's, so Or HaChaim is saying the following, if this is revealed to everybody, and Hashem and Moshe just tell the Jewish people, black and white, no secrets. Listen, there's this option of taking oaths and vows. The danger with that is that people, like nowadays, I'll give you a few examples in a moment, will take it very lightly and just start swearing left and right and taking vows left and right. Okay, you've probably heard people, when I go, it's much more common with high school kids, okay, at least as far as I know, than with adults. But when I go on trips with high school kids or when I teach high school kids, left and right, they're saying, Ani noder, noder, noder. They want to give weight. They want to convince the other people or the peers, peer pressure, hormones, teenagers, they want to try to, really share that their word is their word, because teenagers never keep their word. Yeah, I'm going to dump the garbage, Mom. Yeah, I'll do the dishes. Forget about it. Okay? So teenagers like to use I swear, nishbalecha. You can hear teenagers in Israel and sometimes adults saying that all the time. Nishbalecha. I swear. Hashem did not want oaths and vows to be taken lightly. Hashem wanted oaths and vows to be used only for important and serious matters, issues. Okay? A vow and oath are supposed to give something which is of real importance and of real value. It's supposed to give it more importance, and it's supposed to anchor it and give it stability and help yourself, okay, promise to yourself that you're going to fulfill it. It's not supposed to be just, I swear to you. No. And therefore, there's all like the secrecy going on here. Okay? V'lazeh nitchakem Hashem. Therefore, Hashem made sure to be smart. He can do that. V'he'elim hadavar. He hid this matter. He hid the thing. Okay? He took it away almost. Umasar haheter ligdolei Yisrael. He gave over the heter to the rabbis, the leaders of the Jewish people. Meaning, if you continue reading the Parsha, you'll see there are different ways to get out of a vow. There are different heterim. There are different ways in which you can change your mind. And even though you took God's name and you swore, there are different ways that you can get out of it. Okay, and the Torah goes on to explain. But Hashem didn't want that to be, that option B, that plan B, to be plan A. Hashem didn't want people to think that, oh yeah, you could swear and then you could annul your vow. No problem. No big deal. Hashem wanted it to be a big deal. Hashem didn't want people to know there's really an emergency exit from your vow. Because then from the get-go, people will take vows and oaths very lightly. You guys get this? What the Or HaChaim is saying? And so therefore Hashem made sure to only give it over to the leaders, to the rabbis, that they will know and they'll be able to tell the difference between the different vows and sentences which were made, and then help a person get out of their vow or oath if needed. But not that it's just going to be like a hippie fest and everyone's just going to be doing whatever they want. No. Okay? But in front of the rest of the people, it should be a locked door. If you vowed, if you took a vow, if you took an oath, you got to keep your word. Okay? There shouldn't be a plan B in the back of your mind, because then you're going to treat the vows and oaths very lightly. Okay? That's what the Or HaChaim HaKadosh says. To give importance, the correct importance and attention and seriousness to the vows and oaths. Okay. Now I want to share with you another answer from a totally different direction, okay, from the Hasidic perspective. This was the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, very, very beautiful answer, very practical answer, very connected, very down to earth, connected to where people are, especially nowadays. Like I mentioned, you can see people doing that. I want to give you another answer, also very much connected psychologically and spiritually to where people are at, but from a whole different perspective. Okay, and this is very, very, very beautiful. Okay, and I'm just gonna say it in one sentence, and then we'll see it in detail. The next answer basically tries to share with us that Hashem did not give us this option. Hashem did not command this possibility of taking a vow or an oath, because he didn't want it to come from him. He wanted it to come from us. Okay? That's the answer, the second answer, and now I'm going to develop that and explain it. Okay? So first of all, I made this little chart here. Okay, you guys can see it on the sheet as well. I'm sure this is debatable. This is what made sense to me. This is not, this wasn't checked by psychologists or research or statistics or whatever it is, or therapists. This is just something that I've picked up, and I also noticed in the following idea that I'm going to share with you guys in just a moment from the Sod Yisharim and from the Beis Yaakov. Okay, and I summarized it like this. I summarized this approach. I'm sure there's possibly 5 ways, maybe 10 ways. Okay, for our sake, these are the methods or the means in which a person, okay, can communicate with someone else. Ways in which a person, okay, can get what they want, okay, can get their way or have their dreams, their desires fulfilled. The first way is to command, to order. I want you, okay, to wash the dishes. That's very clear. And maybe the person who's being commanded, maybe the listener will go and do that. Great. That's one way. Okay. The second option is a request. Can you please wash the dishes? Okay. Do you have time? It'd be nice. Can you please wash the dishes for me? That's a request, a question. Okay. The third option is to hint to it, to notice. Okay. To notify, I mean. Okay. Like I walk by the sink and I say, wow, there's so many dishes in the sink and I have nothing, I don't have any plate to eat with. Or I'm so tired, I wish I could wash the dishes, but I can't. Okay? That's a third option. And the fourth option that I wrote is to not express anything to the human beings around you, but to daven, to pray to God that somebody, for the love of God, will wash the dishes, okay, without saying anything. To dream, to pray, to hope, okay. These are four different ways, and again, this is just how I see it, at least for now, for this class. I'm sure you guys have a lot to say about this. I wanted to break this down because the order in which I put them is an order in which, the more you go down from A to D, the less room there is for the person expressing their desire, and the more room there is for the other person. Okay? Meaning, if you command something to somebody else, that somebody else doesn't have that much room to express themselves, or how do they feel about it? What do they think about it? If they want to do what you're asking them to do, they almost have no choice but to do exactly what you're saying. When you command or order someone to do something, you're not giving any room for their own personality or for their own feelings or thought. Okay? And the more you go down, the more you go down in A, B, C, D, the more room there is for the other person, for the other people involved. Okay? If you ask someone to do something, to wash the dishes, as opposed to ordering them to wash the dishes, then there's more room for them. They can say, well, I'd really love to. I'll do that. Thank you for asking. Or I'm too tired. I'm sorry I can't. I'd love to another time. Or why are you asking me? You promised me yesterday you were going to do the dishes. Okay? Whatever it is, the listener has more room to express themselves. If you go to C, to like saying a subtle hint or a notice, like if I walk by the sink, okay, oh wow, the dishes are kind of dirty, I wish I could do them, then you're not commanding the other person to do it, you're not asking them to do it. If they want to, they can pick up on that, like that hint that you sent out there, that little clue, and they can say, oh wow, I'd love to do the dishes to help. Okay, there's a lot more room for themselves to express themselves. And last but not least, D, it's totally about them. If you daven, you pray, you ask Hashem that, the dishes be washed by somebody, and then that person has some kind of awakening to wash the dishes, you're totally not involved. Okay, you guys get this little logic that I put here? Okay, so the thing is, if I do not order somebody to do what I want, or I do not ask them, or I don't even hint to it, okay, there's no chance they're really going to know what I want. Okay, if I don't obviously express it verbally somehow, or write it down and give them a note, there's no chance they're going to know, okay, what I want. Unless Hashem puts it in their heart. Okay, and that's the davening, that's D. So now, guys, Hashem is in a huge predicament. Hashem has a major problem, so to speak. Okay? On the one hand, he doesn't want the relationship that he has with us, with the Jewish people. He doesn't want that relationship, that connection, to only be built on him telling us what to do. Imagine you had a relationship like that with somebody that you love. That the whole relationship is you telling them or asking them to do things. That's not so sweet. That's not so good. Hashem doesn't want a relationship where he's always the focus, he's always the talker, he's always the giver, he's always the one taking initiative. Hashem doesn't want that. He also wants us to take initiative. He also wants us to bring things to the table, to the relationship. But on the other hand, if he doesn't tell us what he wants, there's no chance of really knowing what Hashem wants. That's hard enough with a human being who has a brain, a physical, limited brain like myself. Different, but like myself. So maybe, even then, it's hard to know what another person wants unless they express themselves. Almost the more so. Alachat kama v'kama, a million more times, the more so with God. If he doesn't say what he wants, how can I ever fathom, or try to know out of my own self what Hashem wants me to do. With Hashem in his infinite wisdom, with my finite, limited mind and knowledge. So if he doesn't express or hint to it, how can I know? But if he expresses what he wants and hints to it, then it's him telling us what to do and asking us what to do. And again, it's just him being active in the relationship. And what about me? There's just God, and there's no expression of myself in the relationship with Hashem. And that's not what Hashem wants. Meaning Hashem's in this like catch-22. So he has to somehow, very carefully, throw us a little crumb which we can try to pick up on and say to ourselves, oh wow, this is probably what Hashem wants. And maybe I want to do it, maybe not, because Hashem is just hinting to it. Hashem's not telling us directly. And if Hashem throws us a crumb, if he tells us a very, very, very subtle hint, so I don't feel that it's hardly coming from him, I feel much more that it's coming from me, then it really is coming from me. And then Hashem is not only the active one in the relationship, I also become the active one in the relationship. And then it's very, very beautiful. So therefore, Hashem hints to us, like, by the way, at the end of last Parsha, he kind of throws in there, we hardly even notice it. In the whole salad, in the whole description, describing the offerings of the holidays and Shabbat, Hashem throws in that, and the offerings of the vows. It's like swallowed up. But if I have a good eye, and if I care about the Torah and learn the Torah, I'll pick up on that. And I'll notice that Hashem mentioned that, but he never commanded me to do it. So he didn't command me to do something. He throws that in as like a subtle hint, as an option. So I can then say to myself, oh, Asher, maybe I want to do something like that. Maybe not. And then if I, in my free choice, decide to make a vow, then that's something that I'm bringing to the relationship with God. It's something that I'm putting on the table. You guys hear how sweet this is? How beautiful? Yeah? Okay? And only after I decide with my free will to take an oath or make a vow, does Hashem tell us in our Parsha, if you do that, okay, if you take a vow, then these are the certain laws. But he never commands us to. He never asks us to. Because this way we have an option. We have the opportunity on our own volition, with our own free choice, to bring this to the relationship, to bring this, okay, to the table. Very, very beautiful. Okay, and this is what the Rebbe says. I paraphrased that in my own words and gave you a little introduction to what he says. This is very beautiful. This is the Sod Yesharim. Okay, the first one is the Sod Yesharim. That's this book. Okay, written. We might have seen things in the past from him. Written by Rabbi Gershon Chanoch Henich, who is also one of the people. You can see here it says Baal HaTchelet, the owner of the Tchelet, the blue string on the tzitzit. He's the rabbi who reinvented the blue string on the tzitzit in the 1880s. Okay, now there's discussion whether his version was correct or not, but in any case, Reb Gershon Chanoch Henich, he lived in the 1880s, okay, in the city of Radzin, and actually he is the son of this next rabbi. Okay, Reb Gershon Chanoch Henich is the son of Reb Yaakov of Ishbitz, who we're going to see as well in just a moment. And they take the same approach, like father, like son. It's very sweet. So look what he says. Okay. Inyan nedarim hu hosafa al divrei Torah. The whole matter, the whole root, the whole aspect. Okay, the whole deal about vows is adding on the words of the Torah. Kemoshe ne'emar le'el, as we said above. He's talking about what he wrote in his book previously, what he mentioned it previously. Sheha'adam yuchal mitzido, a person can, on their own hand, on their own volition, from their own perspective, lahachnis geder, to add, to bring into the Torah, into his relationship with Hashem, he can bring in a restriction, a gader, a fence, a limitation, a prohibition, she'oseh mitzad atzmo, that he decides to do on his own. This is his own idea, mishugas, inspiration, whatever you want to call it. Or bikum ve'aseh, or something that doesn't necessarily have to be something which he prohibits upon himself, a fence in which he holds himself back. Okay, I'm never gonna drink this kind of Turkish coffee ever. Not only that, it could also be kum ve'aseh. It could also be something that you have to get up and do. I take a vow to always drink this kind of Turkish coffee, or to drink this kind of Turkish coffee every day at 4:30 in the afternoon. A person can do that. A person can bring themselves into the Torah. A person can basically add, this is amazing, can add a mitzvah onto the Torah. A person can make the 613 commandments into 614, subjective to themselves. You guys get what I'm saying? Fascinating stuff. Okay? Either by prohibiting something or by having to actively do something. Shegam motzas fatav. So this way, that also what comes out of his lips, vehegyon libo, and the decency, the truthfulness of his heart, hiyu nichnasim betoch divrei Torah. This is so sweet. He's like so poetic that this way a person can express the truthfulness, the straightness, okay, their heart's desire, and what comes out of their mouth, that has room in the Torah. You can say something, and it's not just words. It becomes for you the 614th mitzvah, and maybe the 615th and 16th. There's no end. That your heart and lips being a representative of the mind, the intellect, and your heart, your feelings, mind, okay, and heart, intellect and feeling, soul, can express themselves in the Torah. So sweet. And now listen to this, okay? So this is the whole inyan of vows, that this is an opportunity, a chance, a gift, so sweet, for a person to add, to make the Torah subjective to themselves and to prohibit themselves something, or to make an active mitzvah for themselves in the Torah. And there's an infinite amount of room for everyone. Obviously, you can't say, well, I take a vow to eat pork every day. Obviously not. This all has to be done within the realm, within the framework of things which are allowed or permissible. Within that framework, you can add whatever you want, whatever works for you. And now, this is now the cherry on top of what he's saying. The Hashem itbarach, the Holy One, blessed be He, chafetz sheikare kulo, He desires that all of this be called al shem ha'adam. It be called after the person. This is so sweet. Meaning, He wants that when I decide to always have a cup of coffee, I take a vow to always have this brand of coffee every day at 4:30 in the afternoon, because this will help me on my spiritual journey. Hashem wants this to totally be in my merit. That 614th mitzvah will be under my name. I will have the copyright to it, the spiritual copyright. It's going to be something that I came up with. When I get points in heaven for that, it was all my idea. Hashem wants it to be totally ours. He wants to be involved as least as possible. So He does not command and order the vows, because then it will be, He's going to have the copyright. It's going to be His idea. It's going to be on His name. He doesn't ask us to do it. And He hardly gives us a subtle hint. He gives us the subtle, shebesubtle, the most subtle hint possible. And He tries to take Himself out of the picture as much as possible. So whatever I decide to do or not do to help me in my spiritual journey will be something that I came up with and totally my idea, and nothing to do, so to speak, with God's desire. You hear how sweet? You guys hear how amazing this is? So sweet. So beautiful. Hashem's desire, sheikare kulo al shem ha'adam, that it's totally named after the person who decides to do this. Okay? And I would spend a lot more time, okay, meditating on this and just going over because it's so sweet, but we're running short on time, and I just want to share with you what his father said a few years before him in the same idea. Okay? And because of lack of time, I'm just going to share it in English. In this mindset, King David of blessed memory said, I will always hope and I will always add to all the praises upon you. David HaMelech says, I will add. I'm always going to add on my relationship with you, Hashem. I'm not going to just do what it says in the Shulchan Aruch. I'm not just going to keep the 613. Vehosafti. I'm going to add, like Musaf on Shabbat, the additional silent prayer. Okay, Lehosif. I'm going to add on my relationship with you, King David says. Ki lo yistapek b'divrei Torah nitanim leklal kol nefashot Israel. Listen how amazing this is. King David did not suffice with the words of Torah that were given to all of the souls of the Jewish people. That wasn't enough for him. All those are objectively correct for all the Jewish nation. The 613, not one of us can say, well, that doesn't speak to me. I'm not connected to keeping kosher. That's good for other Jews. No, that's not how we roll, brother. Okay? King David did not say that's enough. That was not suffice. That was not enough for him. Bikesh lo hosif. He asked to add on to that, to make his connection to God not just what is required, not just the 613, not just the basics, but to add to his own subjective soul, to his own personal neshama. It's so sweet. And what's going on here? Now the Rebbe gives it a whole nother deeper dimension. Af ki ma she'adam oseh b'mitzvat anashim melumada, the Rebbe says, he doesn't want us to get the wrong idea. What a person does as part of the root of keeping the Torah, the regular things that a person does, keep Shabbat, give charity, tzedakah, learn Torah, all the regular things, hu yakrut gadol, ma she'adam mutba u'murgal b'divrei Torah. This is also a great, valuable thing that a person is accustomed, and in their nature, it becomes their second nature, and they get accustomed to keeping Torah. That's unbelievable. If you can keep the Torah out of cruise control, out of rote and root, and it's just like second nature, that's unbelievable. Many of us struggle to keep the Torah. So don't get me wrong, the Rebbe is saying. Keeping the 613 that's very difficult. And if you're able to keep it, constantly, and there's hardly any challenges or difficulties, and that's second nature, that's unbelievable. That's great. But that's not enough. Okay? What does the Rebbe say? Mehatzorech liyimatzeh ba'adam nekuda sheyosif b'divrei Torah b'cheshko. There's a need, a necessary, it has to be found in a person, one nekuda, 1 point at least, in which a person can add on the words of Torah with their great desire. A person naturally who's in love with God and the Torah has a desire, he's going to have this burning flame that he needs to express himself. He needs to bring something to the table, to the relationship with God. There has to be that. And therefore, there needs to be room for that expression. There needs to be an option for that. And meaning on top of the 613. And what happens then? The Rebbe says so beautifully, בכדי שיברר לו על כל הדברי תורה שמקיימו בחשק וברצון. What happens when I decide to give my relationship to God my own personal twist? What happens when I decide to add something on to the 613? Then I'm not only giving it my own subjective touch to it. I'm not only bringing something to the table. Okay, I'm not only adding to this dynamic relationship that I have between Hashem, but I'm also showing myself that all the 613 that I'm doing, I'm not just doing like a robot because I'm Jewish and I have to do it in a very boring way. All those 613 I'm doing with great desire and will. Because if I was doing them without desire and will, I wouldn't want to add a 614th. You guys get that? How sweet that is. So when I add, so it's twofold. When I add a 614th personal subjective mitzvah, I am strengthening, I am making my relationship with God, okay, much stronger and much more personal. And B, I am infusing all the 613 that I already was keeping with much more fervor and fire and enthusiasm and personality. It's twofold. It's so beautiful. It's so sweet. And that's why Hashem wanted to keep himself out of this picture as much as possible. So it would be up to us as much as possible for these two things to take place. For me to come up with it, for me to build a relationship, for me to be able to add to the 613 and to express my own fire in the relationship with Hashem. The Rebbe, I don't want to add this because I don't want to I don't want to change the flavor in our mouths and our souls right now. But the Rebbe adds by saying, why was this given before they went into Israel to the nations? Because if the Jews were just given alone, the Rebbe says, the 613 would have been enough. If the Jews were staying alone in the desert, they really didn't need more. But they're going into Israel. They're going to be influenced by the nations. They're going to be influenced by modernity, by the world out there. And when you're influenced by that, you need to be able to add your own personal kedusha, your own personal holiness. You guys get what I'm saying? When the world out there is telling you, well, what do you think about things? How do you feel? You got to express yourself. Equality. Okay? What about you? What about when the world at large puts a human being at the center and not God? Then the Rebbe is saying, then Hashem has to give us the option of expressing ourselves much more and adding to the 613. Isn't that amazing? Okay? But if we were in the desert just with God and without the rest of the world telling us, what about you? How do you feel? What do you think? The human being is the focus, not the God. Then the 630 would have been enough. Wow. This is powerful stuff. When I learned this alone in the past week, it wasn't as strong as it is now sharing it with you guys. Okay, but it's really, really so sweet. And I want to end now. We're already 10 minutes late. But I just want to say the two things that, like, the essence of what I got from here is that, first of all, Hashem's desire is that his relationship is not a one-way road, that just he is a director, the editor, the filmer, the market. He wants us to be involved. It's a dynamic relationship. And like we saw in the past few weeks, Nadav and Avihu knew that. And they took action. They turned up being mistaken. Then we saw last week, Pinchas took action. He knew that as well, to express himself. And he was right. And now we have our Parsha, where Hashem hints to us and gives us room to add to the 613 and express ourselves. He doesn't want it to be a boring relationship where it's just him. It's him and it's us. It's this. It's sometimes this, okay? But it's also this as well. Us and Hashem. Sometimes Hashem and us. Okay, that's first of all. And second of all, I have to make Judaism personal. I have to make it subjective. If I don't make it subjective, if I don't give it my own taste, my own flavor, there's a very strong probability and risk that it's going to evaporate and decimate and disappear. If I'm really in love with Hashem and in love with the Torah, I have to give expression to my own subjective neshama, to my own personal soul. And each and every one of us should do the same. And I bless all of us, guys, to feel that strong connection to God, to have a desire to add to the relationship and to bring ourselves to the table, to express ourselves, and also have room, of course, for everybody else. Very, very sweet. Very, very, very sweet.